Let's jump on in here. I think most of you have seen or heard from Brad at some point. We've had the pleasure of working with him for a good number of years now on the Title Alliance side in a few different capacities. And I'll say that Brad is very knowledgeable. He's also a very a chill, calming individual, which I appreciate. So sometimes when there's turmoil in the market or all sorts of interesting, we'll call them interesting, regulations jumping out at us. Always great to chat with Brad about that because he's got the resources, the knowledge to really fill you in there, but also that very practical perspective. So when you see all the alarmist newspaper headlines, or back when the CFPB was really starting to dig in on stuff a few years ago, we all thought that was going to change more than it really did, etc. Again, having that voice of reason and knowledge there, that's Brad. So with that, I'm going to turn it on over to you and let you share more of that with us today. Thank you so much, Brad.
Yeah, I don't even know if I can live up to that introduction. Thanks, Michael.
My pleasure.
Yeah, no, so the one thing that I'll preface everything is this was brought on by a call that I received from Kim, and she said, "Hey, Brad, I'm kind of curious. What do you think's going to happen with all the regulations, that the CFPB and the changes that are going on with everything that the government's doing right now?" And that's like $1 million question. It's incredible that the CFPB has been in place, and it originated back a few years ago, and it became a self-funded organization or government entity where they they actually went and audited and found, and they were the compliance gurus to make sure that everybody was doing the right thing. And with that, Sherry, if you would go to the next screen, with that, they were really pretty interesting because, when you look at all the different government entities, we've got the CFPB, RESPA, state regulators, and all those different entities that are out there, and they always have to make sure they're in sync, they're in compliance, they're doing everything the same way. Well, the changes now, and Sherry, if you want to go to the next one, I appreciate it. The power that they had was incredible. The CFPB, Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, they would go in just and they didn't do it just in finance, in real estate, in title. They oversaw compliance in many different levels. And Sherry, go ahead, please, to the next slide, if you would. I always used to make fun of it because CFPB doesn't really mean Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. It means collect funds and place blame. That's my little sixth sense of humor on there. But because they were self-funding, they would always collect funds by leveling a lot of penalties and fines on major corporations, banks, title companies, real estate agencies, with the rules that RESPA set out a long time ago. But they were a much stronger watchdog and had more teeth, and they would definitely go in and basically create hell. So please, Sherry, if you'd go to the next, I want to talk a little bit about the changes with the CFPB and what does this mean? Well, we have, fortunately, and some of you guys have worked with Marks. He's a RESPA attorney, and I think he's probably one of the foremost leading experts in the United States when it comes to compliance, RESPA laws, anything to do with any of the government entities. He's incredibly knowledgeable. When the CFPB came out and said that what they were doing, he came out and said they're capping funds not because they're closing the CFPB, but because they're streamlining it. Again, the government can't shut down CFPB without Congress signing off. But one of the things he went further to say is that it may pause or have some cause, and some court deadlines might be delayed, which is going to lead to even further litigation and activation. But he believes, and I highlighted it in yellow there, he believes that with the CFPB, what's going to take place is that the states are going to become more involved in policing and making sure that RESPA is being followed. And I've talked to several people in the industries, and everybody's pretty much in agreement. They're thinking that the state is going to come in at a much higher level and start, and they do already, as you know, they come in and they do audits, and they're going to be looking at all sorts of different things. As a title company, we get audited once a year, and they take a pretty deep scope look into not only are we following all of RESPA, but we have to file and publish rates. Are we charging the right rates? Everything that goes with it. And they're not shy about if they see something with telling you right away, your penalty and your fine is going to be X amount of dollars for whatever violation it was. So I imagine that the state's involvement, they're going to grow a little bit tougher and have a little more teeth, and we're going to see a lot more things, which is not exciting in our world, right? And sorry, I don't mean to put you guys to sleep with regulation and all that, but I really believe that the states are going to be more involved. The Anybody that falls under RESPA should continue to follow laws and understand them to be implemented, and don't change a thing. That was Mark's number one comment. He says, stay the course, make sure you're following all the rules that are out there, all the laws, and with RESPA, and you'll be okay. So Sherry, if you would go to the next screen. The one thing that's really interesting in Arizona, and it's really interesting. Every state has different regulations that they allow or don't allow when it comes to marketing activities. There are even some states out there. Texas is a state where there is absolutely no marketing activity allowed. So title companies they can't even give you a keychain. There's absolutely nothing allowed. In Idaho, they'll let you do very limited number of things. In Las Vegas, they're really tough on anything that they're doing. But the number one thing is in like RESPA Section 8, it tells us that, gifts and promotional items or things of value are going to be looked at. If they're given and accepted an agreement for referral business, and anything with referral business, that's strongly discouraged, and it can get you in some trouble. So one of the things that they always come into is like in the states where they're really, really tough. I know a lot of people out there, I've heard people say, hey, I got tickets to the Suns game or to the Cardinals games from this company or that company. That I think is going to be probably scrutinized pretty heavily in the future, especially and I'm speaking directly in the title sector. Okay. There's different regulations and stuff for mortgage. There's different for real estate. There's different for title, but they look really closely at ours to see if we're trying to pay to play, to get people to bring us deals because we're sending them to concerts, all those kind of different things. So one of the next slide, Sherry, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I just want to chime in on this one really quick, Brad, and then I'll switch on. The reason why something like this would matter, and you guys were just talking about AI and, obviously social media. Social media plays a big part in what they're regulating as well. So all the posts that people put, thanks to such and such, title company, real estate company for sending us to this game, those things have to be, you got to be very, very careful about those things. Those are the things that regulators are looking at when we get, not only are they looking at our internal systems, but they go straight to social media and start looking for the things that the real estate agents, the title companies, the lenders are posting, and they're using that as some of their fuel and their I guess, the findings to be able to impose these levies and fines. So just be mindful of that as you know, make sure you're talking with your partners before you're posting about what's okay and what's not.
Yeah, it's a good point, Sherry, because even earlier this year, as you guys remember, they were talking about on the MLS, if you even put any information down about a title company, which they came back, basically said, please don't do any of that. But it'll be interesting to see where they come with it. In Arizona specifically, we are governed in, basically our regulator is the Department of Finance, Arizona Department of Finance. And they have revised statutes, and under it, section 20 is insurance. And in it, the title insurance, they talk about, filed rates and our audit, and even what we are allowed and not allowed to do with escrow funds. And by the way, nobody or everybody, I hope, knows that that we can never earn interest on, like, residential. The title companies don't earn interest on any of those funds. They have to be placed in an escrow account and then obviously used for the closing funds. But the one thing that the state of Arizona hasn't done, and I'm going to try to get a hold of them to figure out, because as they get more teeth, they don't have anything out there on the do's and don'ts of marketing activities and what's prohibited and what's not. So again, going back to what Mark says, and he says, do the right thing, stay compliant with the RESPA. So that's one of the things that I hope you guys know. Title compliance is really, really compliant when it comes to all regulations, because not only do we want to make sure that we don't get our company in trouble, but there are many cases out there where if the title company has gone in and paid to play, it also can create fines and some hardships on licenses for the individual real estate agents. So one of the things that I put on here is some best practices. And this is kind of a takeoff of how RESPA reads as far as marketing activities. They're saying you can't make any monetary payment to a producer unless the payment is for the actual cost of bona fide supplies or services received by the title insurance. Okay, make any kind of payment to any producer, provide any free products or services, including but not limited to postage. But they go on and on. I mean, they're basically saying we can't send your mail out for you, right? Can't give you envelopes, can't give you stamps, can't give you any of that kind of stuff. Engage in joint advertising by any means of communication or media that names a specific producer unless the producer pays for its fair share of the advertising cost in direct proportion of its prominency in the advertisement. That's always a really fun one. So if you, back in the old days, marketing materials, flyers, all that kind of stuff, if the real estate agent said, I want to have my logo, all my stuff on 50% of the publication, then they would have to pay for 50% of the cost of production and everything else that goes along with it. Also says we can't provide video equipment, any other type of electronic or cyber equipment services, virtual tours unless producer pays. Provide advertising. It's really kind of boring, sorry guys, but basically saying that we can't pay for advertising costs for you guys. This one always gives me, it's sponsor, co-sponsor, provide free door prizes, refreshments or meals at any producer's open house, tour open house, awards banquet, company party, unless a representative of the title insurance or agent is present. We have educational marketing material available and sign-in signage. So it's not saying we can't, it's just saying this is what you have to do in order to do that. Sponsor, co-sponsor free door prizes, refreshments, or meals at any producer's open house unless we're there, and again, have advertising and marketing material. Can't provide free meals unless we're present to, and discuss our business. at any meetings and any like group settings. We can't enter into leases and spaces unless it's agreed or it's actually market rent. It's compliant with what the comps are and all that kind of stuff. Provide career continuing education unless there's a cost that's paid by the agent to attend. So it's kind of stringent, as you can tell. The RESPA, they're basically, they don't want companies to just be out there saying, hey, we'll do this for you if you send us your business. They want to try to create a equal playing field where it's not enticement and it's not pay to play. So again, going back to RESPA and making sure that all the compliance and things are done, we're pretty with Title Alliance, we're very compliant, and we do it simply because the fines associated with breaking these rules is extremely costly. I've seen fines out in our industry in excess of 6 digits. And it's, I don't know about you guys, but when you start looking at your year, that could really make a bad year. So it's not that we don't want to help you sometimes when you come and say, hey, can you I want to do a parking lot party for just me. And I want to invite just a specific group. This tells us that we can't really do that. But if we invite several companies and several agents, we're allowed to participate. So if you guys have questions or anything like that, get a hold of Sherry or myself, and we'll go through a little deeper dive into what we can and can't do. But again, I just wanted to be real clear. We'd love to do whatever we can, but we have to be compliant with what the rules are stated out there.
And along the lines of that, it's not just for our protection. It's definitely for your protection as well. Because Brad was saying, when those fines come, not only is it a fine or a penalty and licensing issues, you get on their radar, and nobody wants to be on their radar. We'd like to have them not pay attention to us and have us be known as one of the good guys. And so that they're focusing on the ones who are known to be doing the, back end deals, or the handshakes and the free stuff here and the free stuff there. So anytime that we're asking or pushing back when you guys have requests from us, it really is for everybody's protection at the end of the day.
Yeah, and one thing I'll jump in on that real quick is if your eyes are kind of glossing over a little bit with all these bullet points and the specifics, here's the thing to keep in mind right now. If all of a sudden someone's reaching out to you, haven't heard from a while, and the gist of it is essentially like, hey, now that the CFPB is not doing its thing, okay, if they're suddenly offering something, to pay for whatever, like the previous slide said, like we all said here, just keep doing the right thing. If something's coming out of the woodwork all of a sudden now, probably it wasn't the right thing, and they're just trying to get away with something now. It's just not worth it, guys. So, and again, if you have a question, you're not sure, come to us, right? Ask the broker, reach out to Brad, Sherry, whomever, and we'll give you the straight info on it for sure.
Yeah, and Mike, this is Tina. The same goes for Model Mortgage, guys. We really want to help you as much as we can, but we don't want anyone getting in trouble. It's just not worth it. So
So true, Tina. Yeah, so again, thanks, Mike, for that, because it's better to ask and get get upfront rather than to have them come in after you've done it and say, hey, and I got to tell you guys, I wish it wasn't true, but competitors, number one, if they see anything, if they see that you put out there on your Facebook or something that XYZ bought me tickets and paid for a presidential suite to whatever, the concert, the game, the da 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 da, your competitions, they get jealous. They turn you in. They turn that right over to the state auditors, and the auditors, that's how they get their leads, and that's how they start digging. So be careful on several levels on what you put out there in social media and all that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah, good point.
Does anybody have any questions now that I've scared you and bored you to death?
or anything anyone's seeing out there that that has started up recently, or you're not sure if maybe it is on the up and up, but hey, you'd sure like to do if it was anything like that, feel free to come off mute, jump on in.
Quiet group, Michael.
I've
Yeah,
got I've got one. Am I coming through?
yeah, go for
Yes.
it, Art.
We just got a a voice magazine out on Tuesday, and it had talked about um, uh, how RESPA says that we have to post the ABAs in the MLS now because the state is now sort of involving, just as Brad had said, they're inserting themselves in this whole RESPA process, and the ABA is governed by RESPA, but the state is now saying we want to see this in every transaction. So I've got a letter right now back to the attorney of Arizona Realtors to find out if we're not directly involved, like if you have no intention of using any of our ABA participants, if you still have to put it in. And I'm just waiting for an answer back on that, but I'll be sending out more on it. Thank you.
Thanks, Art. Yeah, that's a good point. And that's one of the things is with all the changes and the states becoming more active, they come out pretty fierce up front, and sometimes, in my opinion, kind of overreaching on some of the things that they're going to want. Creates some hardship all the way around, but we'll get through it. And again, we have great relationships with Marks, who, like I say, is probably the most foremost leading attorney as far as compliance and RESPA and CFPB, all that kind of stuff. So as we get through it, we always confer with him to make sure that everything we're doing is right.
So Art, I have a question on that. So I've had a situation where a listing agent or an agent on the other side is pushed back, and even their brokers come back and said they don't want to sign our disclosure for the title company, mortgage company. What's the best way to handle that from your perspective of covering ourselves if you've got somebody who flat out won't sign it?
Yeah, great question. So what they're saying is that we don't have to get signatures at all. And I think with the participant, it would be more strongly requested. But what they're saying is as long as we prove that we present it, that's all we need. And what the commissioner came down and told Rick Mack was that if you put it in the MLS, that is a justifiable notification. So it's safe just to put the ABA in there, and you don't have to worry about it anymore.
And,
Thanks.
and another reason that matters is because the timing of the presentation of the ABA is crucial, and they want it before showings, before listings. So ABA right up front is posting on the MLS is a great way to go.
Very good, Sherry. That's something that I actually left out, that it has to be before the transaction.
Yeah.
And from this is Tina, from a motto perspective, we actually do the ABAs at time of pre-qualification. So that's the opportunity we have to, to just get it out there ahead of time, just so you know.
And this is Tammy from Title Alliance. And even though it is supposed to be done ahead of time, we do still have it signed at closing with our documents as well, just so it's taken care of.
And it also, Tammy, just to add to that, we do send it out on our
Welcome
opening
package.
package. So we try to cover many different bases just to make sure that we can show that it has been delivered.
Yeah, and Tammy, your actions on that on one of ours saved us from an ADRE complaint because it went out. We had somehow missed it, and I appreciate what you did there. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Lynette, do you have your virtual hand up there? Jump in.
I do. So for a while there, we were trying to make him as part of the transaction. Like we were having to add it to the little check mark. Are we not needing to do that now? Because I honestly thought that was
I
not a
would,
good.
I'm sorry, Art, no, can I jump in? I definitely think that you should continue to do that.
But even if we're not using either of the companies on there, the only reason being is because you're just disclosing that you have this affiliation. Your brokerage has this affiliation. If we're not working with either one, why does it need to be party to the transaction?
Okay, so you're saying if you're not gonna, if it doesn't go to Title Alliance or Model Mortgage, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say you probably don't need it.
Yeah, I want to work that out a little more with Nate. And that question has come up recently. One of the things that I'm considering about it is that those check boxes are really for addendums. They're not for disclosures. Now, the one exception to that is that there's one disclosure that we do put in there, and that's lead-based paint. But I think it's because it's federal. It's actually one of the actual check boxes. But addendums technically aren't part of those. If you read the wording there, it says addendums. And so where I see the problem coming in is if somebody doesn't sign something that we put the checkbox on, it's actually an incomplete contract because they didn't complete the parts that we've now included in there. I want to work that out a little more. Right now, I'm not forcing it one way or the other, and I'll try and have more of that for you as well. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm just asking because I was licensed in another state, and the attorney for the Washington Association of Realtors would slap your hand if you tried to make people sign it. You know what I mean? Like, or you tried to add it as party of the transaction. Like they didn't even, yeah, anyway. So I could see that. Also, I've got one more question. Sorry, Roberta. Some of us work with like probates, estates, that sort of thing, and it's very imperative that we get you know, escrow kind of open on the front end so that we can make sure that we don't have any issues on the front end. Is that not something that we can even advertise in the private remarks, like pre-escrow is open due to da 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 da? Or can we? I know that Sarah had made a comment that the broker's asking us not to put anything, but if we're in a position where it's a really sticky probate situation, are we not allowed to do that?
So I'll let the other two jump in, but like the simplest version I heard of that, and again, this is where it comes down to how is someone going to interpret something, right? Is that it can't be any kind of steering or recommendation, right? So like if it's factual, like pre-escrow is opened at, that's one thing, but if it's pre-escrow is opened here, please use, okay, now that's gone over. Does that sound accurate, Art, Brad?
Correct. Yeah. You definitely can't say even like preferred title company. They're discouraging even that these days.
Yeah, I had a little bit of instruction from Leanne that practice that she did, and she said that what she does is she says title has been pre-opened. Please contact the agent for more information. That way, it's not out there, but yet you have the opportunity to adjust that if the other agent has enough courage to give you a call.
A good way to do it.
Yeah, and then again, like I would default to not having information there that doesn't need to be, just because again, random state auditor reads something a little bit different, and now all of a sudden they're going to poke at everything. So, but good point, Lynette. When there is a case like that where it actually is more important, it's more vital, like I think that's all right. Still be really careful, and we try to lay eyes on those things and let you know. And again, just giving it to you guys straight, right? The question about, hey, do we need this even if we're not using? It's really, it comes down to a risk management thing, right? Because there are cases where like they're not using them now, but then something happens with their financing, and like you chat with Tina in the hall, now Tina's working with them, all of a sudden, guess what? You're using it, right? But the other piece of that too is we have a lot of checks and balances, but we're human, and y'all are professionals, so you do a lot of transactions, which is great. But also that means like we kind of then have to verify everyone. Like, is this one that is using it or not? Like, do we need to push it or not on everyone? So frankly, just from a logistical standpoint, it's easier to like, have the request out there. So that's part of it. And again, we're always trying to find the right balance for y'all. I appreciate that. Roberta, you've been waiting patiently.
Yep. Well, maybe my fingers are going like this. No, I'm kidding. I have two questions as well. So the first is on that ABA, because now I'm confused. Are we adding it to the contract or not? And I feel like I recall that when I've not had it on there, I've gotten dinged for it, that it was missing. We always put it in the MLS. I always ask the other agent to include it. But what, can you just say yes or no? Or do we include it on the contract or not?
Great question. Before I answer, Michael, do you have an opinion on that at all? Muted. Muted.
Okay, let's try that again. I'm gonna throw it back and defer to your broker team on that because there's just a few more gray areas than it seems like there would be there.
Yeah, okay, thanks. So I need to let you know I have evolved in my management. I started by what I was taught when I joined, and then as I develop my role and as I'm moderated by both management and classes, like I took the GRI class, which I thought was really good. I have changed that, and I did request it in the beginning because that's what was taught to me. As I look at it now, I'm not enforcing it when it's not there. What we do have to do though is figure out how to comply. And so I will come out with more opinion on that, but right now I'm not enforcing it anymore. Roberta, thanks for asking.
Thank you. And then the next question is for Brad. On your, I think it was your second slide. I'm not sure. It's the one that had the quite a volume of bullet points. And the fourth from the bottom says that, and it's referencing that for y'all, the title agency shall not provide free meals to any producer unless the title insurer or agent is present, title insurance business is discussed, and the meals are not a regular occurrence. A title insurer or agent shall not provide free recreational activities or entertainment to any producer under any circumstance. And my question is, does that go the other way as well? So am I not allowed to do that? I mean, I'll be honest, I kind of like some of these people. I kind of like the people at Title Alliance. I kind of like the people at Mono Mortgage, and I have some other relationships out there. And I like to invite people to things and provide food and entertainment. So does this go the other direction, or is it a one-way street?
That's pretty much a one-way street. It's the things that I listed on there are what the title company is regulated by. Okay, so as far as does it go the other way, like if you wanted to do something, I would have to say that you should get advice from the attorney for Mart or even Michael on that. But as far as title companies, it just basically is saying that, and I think where they get a little far reaching, in my opinion, is they just don't want us to say every week we're taking everybody to happy hour and paying for everything, meals, drinks, in return for business.
Roberta, all of that is really just an enticement for business. So if you're inviting people relationally on the agent side, it's fine. They just don't want to see us as the title insurer being the one that is enticing you to send us the business by doing free things for you.
Yeah, I get that, Sherry. I just, I've never appreciated one-way streets.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'm with you on that.
And I want to make sure, because really, I have an event coming up that I was like, oh, this would be perfect. They would love it. And I listen to you talk and I'm thinking, well, I'm not inviting them.
No, you can still, and it's allowed as long as it's not regular. And if we're invited and we're participating, or if we're paying for any food or anything like that, we need to have some informational material be present. And we always love to give a little short speech about our company, and then they get off our backs. Then everything's good.
Yeah. All right.
We have
So,
a
real
question.
quick,
Oh, sorry.
I'll just say in the chat here, because I think this is a quick answer. So Jessica says, I've also seen in private remarks that quote, seller won't pay for a title if company X is not used, or where an offer would not be considered unless title company X is used. Should be a pretty definitive answer on if that's okay or not.
Definitely not okay.
Yeah, that's definitely stirring it. There are some some little loopholes I can say out there, or not even loopholes, but where they came back is where the government really got involved in this is when it is a government-backed mortgage, a government-backed security, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, VA, FHA, all those is where they said that you can't or tell people that they have to close at such a title company. But then they also have a disclaimer in there, unless the seller pays for all of the closing costs. So there's a couple different things out there that are allowed and not allowed, but definitely you don't want to, especially putting it on MLS or any marketing, it has to close at XYZ title or wherever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Sarah, go for it.
I was just gonna say we had a comment from Jessica, so you got me. So
All right. Well, any other burning questions on this particular topic, folks? I mean, again, I know there's a lot of those nuances, and I think it's a good idea too. If there's something you're not sure, if you think maybe it's a gray area, just let's talk it through, right? You know, let's make sure we're on the right side of that. Err on the side of caution because it's not worth going the other way.
Appreciate.
yeah, so there's always that saying of when in doubt, disclose, right? And so I think, yeah, just if it doesn't feel right in your gut, ask questions. We've got plenty of people, you've got Art, you've got Junior, who is really stepping into his new role, you guys. So I don't know if he's on the call or not, but JR, I'm very proud of him. I've known him since he was a little guy. So really proud of him and the role he's taken on. So so yeah, we've got plenty of options. I mean, we've got other brokers too on the call that are wealth of knowledge. I just called Jennifer Daniels the other day, picking her brain about something. Roberta helped me over the weekend. So, reach out to people within our organization. We're all here to help each other and support each other. And, if you don't know the answer, somebody else does. So lean into that and help each other out. So that'd be my 2 cents.
Yeah, absolutely. That's again that remains after just about 20 years now. It's one of my very favorite things about professionals is the actual collaboration, how everyone's there to help and jump in, and that's how we keep rising above the crowd, right? Frankly, that's what it is. So thank you all for that. But hey, let's then pivot again. If you got more questions, feel free to jump in, put in chat, whatever. We could talk sidebar with these guys. But let's jump in, spend a little bit of time on some of our highlights from R4. I've heard a lot of great things. Wasn't able to be there myself. I was traveling elsewhere this year, but a lot of exciting stuff. So let's jump into that, and we can kind of take that over into some of our mastermind time starting at 10 here. For anyone who wants to stay on, get deeper on that, that'd be great. But I know a few folks put their hands up right away with stuff they wanted to jump in with. Roberta, Rick, do you want to start us off with some of your takeaways?
I'd be happy to start. The takeaways this year, I really, really enjoyed the general sessions. They're so big and they're so crowded. And I know a lot of people really like to have those smaller, intimate groups in the breakouts, but these general sessions were really amazing. I didn't know a single person when I looked and saw who the speakers were. And I thought, okay, let's go see what they have to say. And 100% of them were absolutely amazing and inspiring. And I would just advocate that everybody go to R4 just to get out of that real estate box and go hear what people are doing in other industries, because it's truly inspiring even to us. And it's remarkable how much they do bring real estate into the conversation, how educated they are. But what several of the speakers were advertising their books. I was able to get some of the books. One of the speakers was focused on goals and mindset. And I just really loved that. And I'll just say, the one was talking about those soundtracks that run in our minds that, this is awful, this is bad, CFPB, oh my gosh, how are we gonna make this work? All of that. And I just loved that he said, one, overthinking is when what you think gets in the way of what you want. I thought that was a great way to frame discussions like that. Another slide that he shared was great thoughts lead to great actions lead to great results. Of course, conversely, bad thoughts turn into bad actions turn into bad results. And I just thought that these types of reminders, because we all know it, are really helpful, and it's part of the spirit of R4, and all of it was just incredible. Nate posted, or somebody, I think it was Nate, posted this: stop saying that will never work here and start saying, I wonder how that could work here. I thought that was really cool. And then the other thing, if you missed it, I don't know how you missed it, but whether you were at R4 or not, I always love the little nugget, the little big surprise that they always launch out. And that was the new logo. And it's a digital logo. The other logo is still in operation for print, but the digital logo came out, and they just did some amazing things with it. And people are doing such creative versions with the new logo, and I just love it. I will say that when we sent it to our kids with no prep whatsoever, we just sent out the new logo with it was with Rick's picture in it, and the kids were like, "That's a great picture, Dad." And I love the new logo. They had no idea that we were sending it to them to get the new logo comment, and they saw it right away. Loved it. So
Roberta,
anyway, I talked too long.
Can I add to that, Roberta? There was a stat, and then just so you guys know.
Yeah.
So the most modern, so Remax, the new logo, 27% favorability on the internet. The next is Real at 19%, and the third is also our current logo at 18%. And then KW's all the way down at 8%. So if you take 27 and 18, add that together, we are dominating, absolutely dominating the online visibility. And I know there's been some people out there, naysayers about the new logo, but when we think about what headquarters has done and the money that they've pumped into this research, it's putting us first and forward, right? I mean, we're constantly that's one thing I love about our leadership is they are always looking at how do we put our agents, our brand, our brokerages first and foremost out in the competition. So just want to share that statistic with you guys. So we are crushing it when it comes to online visibility.
And there's one more stat I wanted to share that I've been sharing with a lot of people, just FYI. And this is another reason I love to go to R4, because you get these knocks in the head, these reminders, that we don't always see on the day-to-day basis. But there was a stat that 80% of all transactions, 80% come from our sphere of influence. If that's not a wake-up call to increasing your business this year, I don't know what is. So that's R4 for me.
Yeah, and Roberta, Sarah, I mean, workman stuff, et cetera. Like, I mean, that's a great point. How many times have we been making it? And if anyone out there is concerned about what the market's going to look like in the next year, or what's happening with the economy, or like all these other things, right? Whichever direction you think it's going to go, I think it's fair to say we have uncertainty about it. One thing that is a certainty is that the folks that lean into their spheres, especially in challenging markets, they actually do much better than the rest of the market. So when we talk about like the top 50, when we talk about the 33 touch program, like all these different things, find one of those or pieces of those that work for you. And we are more than happy to help you with that too, and lean into that. That is probably the best that you could do. If you're looking to increase your business, certainly, if you're looking to just hedge and maintain, like anything, lean into your sphere, be that resource, and make sure you're visible to them.
Mike,
Rick,
I'd like to jump in and just add to what Roberta said. The large sessions were phenomenal, as always. I always love R4, the chance to learn more and be challenged, as well as get psyched up, to network with people from around the country and around the world. Roberta and I do commercial. The commercial breakout cocktail party was phenomenal. We met some great people, and we always get referrals. It was great. I particularly liked the breakout sessions this year. Of course, Tony Ray's was the best of all of them, but a close second was a breakout session on a program called Folio. Back in October of last year, I got an email through Remax that said, "Hey, you get a free subscription to Folio Pro." And I just looked right past it. I have too much to deal with. But when I saw that they were doing a breakout on Folio, I decided to go and learn. And wow, if any of you are not familiar with Folio, it integrates, of course, with Max Center and Bold Trail, but with either Gmail or your Outlook, organizes all your emails by transaction, gives you on the right hand side a full timeline of all the activities in a transaction that's shareable, and it's branded, shareable with your clients to keep them on track. I sort of understood that, but what I learned in the breakout session is it does so much more. It automatically sends it integrates with your Google accounts, so it automatically sends to your client at the end of a transaction if you check the box. So maybe some transactions don't go the way you want them to, but if they do, and that box is checked, it will send them a link to give you a review. It'll populate it right into your Google, and it does so much more. It's very robust, and it's not free to everyone else, but to Remax agents it is, and it's not just the basic version, it is the pro version. So I'd encourage you to search your email boxes for the word Folio and go ahead and accept that. And not only did it get me into Folio, but because of the integrations, it gave me a deep dive back into Max Center and some other areas, and just sort of blew my mind again, as all of our software packages do. Thanks for letting me share that, Mike.
Yeah, good stuff there. Thanks, Rick. And I mean, good reminder, right? That's something that's been out there for 6 months now. But I get it. We we got so much stuff coming through inboxes, etc. But that's why I like to share this kind of things, and there's so much to rediscover even. Who else has got some good stuff? Brandy, I know you had mentioned a couple things. Do you want to jump in?
Sure. Yeah, so it was my first time going this year, even though I've been an agent for a very long time. It was pretty wild to see all of the different places the agents were coming from, and then doing the international thing. That was insane. I've never seen anything like that in my life. There are people from everywhere you can possibly think of that you're like, no way do we have a presence in this place. Oh yes, we do. And it was mayhem, and there was bodies like just packed in like sardines, and this incredible energy. And it was such a neat networking opportunity, just getting information on people in all of these random places that I just never would have thought that we had a presence. And I'm now communicating on a regular basis with people in Virginia and on the East Coast. And I think that is the thing. And the classes were incredible, and I did quite a few of those, but if nothing else, it kind of took me off of my little island a little bit. You get to feel a little isolated, and I'm coming into the office meetings more, and I'm meeting all of you guys more, and I got to meet some people. Actually got to have a conversation with Tony Ray finally, and he's so fun. And then Lisa and Denise too. And just getting to know people that are down in Tucson, and just seeing how different all of our personalities are. But now I'm talking to people in Virginia on a regular basis. We're texting back and forth funny dog pictures. And if I hadn't gone, I wouldn't have had these connections. And these are probably people that I will know for many, many years, and hopefully do business with and refer back and forth. But it's also good to just get out of my bubble and get a different perspective. So the classes were phenomenal, especially the fighter pilot. That woman, she was a powerhouse. She was really, really great. I'm going to be getting that book. I'm really glad I went. It was worth every single dollar. It was exhausting, and I was sick, and I'm still glad I went. And I think that it will only help to get me, more comfortable with approaching people. I've seen a difference in my behavior already since I've been home. Just, hey, I do real estate, you know, and just handing my card out, and you just get really good at it because it is just reflex action when you're there. And I've never really done that. I've kind of always been afraid of being the schmarmy realtor. So that's not been a regular practice of mine, but I think it was good for many reasons, but especially the just putting yourself out there.
I
Yeah,
love that,
that's awesome
Brandy.
stuff.
The
Yep.
schmarmy realtor. How many of us feel like that, right? I love that. Mike, I've got some data points if you want me to share those of stuff that Buffini shared.
Yeah, yeah, just a second. I want to touch on the Sparby Realtor too, because I heard that loud and clear. I think that's one thing is the number one thing I've seen people push back on when we talk about, leading deeper into your SOI, right? When you talk about your sphere and family and friends and all that kind of stuff, is the reason they like don't do more of it is because they don't want to be that way. They don't want it to be gross, etc. And just to be very clear, when we're talking about like leading into that, we're not saying that you should be making all these marketing calls, right? Twisting arms, etc. We're saying you should be connected, like genuinely connected, be there. They need to be aware that, this is your profession, this is what you do, you're a resource for them. But the point of when you're reaching out is not to be like, hey, so what do I need to do to get you to list your home today before we're off the phone? Like, this is not what you're doing, right? You're just connected with them. And naturally, questions about the market are going to come up. Don't be a secret agent, as we used to say, right? Like, don't have someone that absolutely would have listed or sold with you, but they like forgot somehow that you were a realtor. Heck, wear your Remax balloon even. Just like that on a lapel or whatever without like throwing to it specifically can do amazing things. So yeah, when we're talking about reaching out, don't worry about being schmarmy because unless that's who you naturally are, no, just keep being yourself, but just make sure they're aware of what you do. I think it's important.
I love
But yeah,
that.
jump in,
Yeah,
Sarah.
and I have to agree with Brandy. That was my first time going to the global exchange. I don't know why I've never gone before. It's wild. Like the energy is just it's insane. So that's something I will be going to again because it was just so awesome. Like it was amazing. So and it really opens your eyes to the power of the brand so that we're a part of. But anyway, a couple really quick, and I'll go quickly on these. Current data 2024, the average buyer was 56 years old. It was 49 the year before. Now it's jumped to 56. 73% of people who bought a home in 2024 did not have a child under the age of 18 living in the home. And then 17% of buyers purchased multi-generational. This is the highest it's ever been. So some trends that we're seeing in the marketplace that because my head has been in a cold state. I don't know how we lean into this yet, but more to come.
And
This
Sarah,
is a
on the seller side, that average age is 63 now, I believe.
correct. Yeah,
Yeah,
63 is the average seller. Yep.
yeah, that's the highest recorded. That's interesting.
Yeah, yeah, and this is a little bit of an alarming stat. So in 2023, 32% of buyers were first-time home buyers. That has dropped to 24. And I think we have an opportunity as an industry to lean into that and get louder. They also shared that online betting is up 2 to 1, which everyone gasped, and I'm like, why are you gasping? If you watch any professional sports, you know that they are pushing the heck out of online betting. And then the next commercial is, hey, do you have a gambling problem? But what Buffini shared was the sentiment is that people think they can't afford to buy a home. I was speaking to my 23-year-old nephew recently, and he said to me, I think I'm just going to buy an RV because I can't afford to buy a home. To which I said, no, no, we're not doing that, right? So I think we have an opportunity as an industry to lean into that data and start getting louder about the opportunities that are out there for first-time home buyers. Okay. Mike shared the 63. This is also a really cool thing, you guys. Consumers, what they look for in an agent is reputation is 35%. Most important factor. And then trustworthiness and honesty at 21%. And guess where we rank? We're all of those, right? So we're still holding that in all of those categories. There was a data point floating around the internet, and I won't use names, but had said that 75% of realtors last year didn't sell a house. That is not true. According to NAR, it was 47%. Still a shocking number, 700,000 agents approximately. We know that that's not any of us in this Zoom room. But yeah, so that data point's not as alarming. So that's all I got, Mike, as far as stats. But I do think that first time home buyer thing, we've got some opportunity there to lean into that. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I think part of this too, again, the magic is not in the numbers, it's what we do with it, right? How do we interpret that? How do we take action together? Excuse me. And thankfully, Remax helps with that in a lot of ways. But also like discussions like this amongst us, think about how these numbers apply to your business, right? Like, does one of these stand out? And if you're really thinking about it, like introspectively, retrospectively, like, oh, gee, yeah, last year I had a little bit of a harder time, maybe connecting with sellers, or your listing count was down or something. Well, why is that? Does something here apply, right? If the average age of a seller being 63, and that really coming up a little bit, like, does that say maybe you need to change your approach slightly of your listing presentation, right? Like maybe subconsciously, you were aiming for someone a couple decades younger who has slightly different top concerns. I mean, things like that, subtle stuff you could apply to your business to really help. So anyone who has feedback on those pieces as well, jump in. I'd love to hear that. And as Lynette asked in the chat here, some of these stats, yeah, we have most of these collected as like highlight items in our notes and whatnot. I'll send out the quick slides on those that have all these things when the meeting wraps here, so you can go back and look at those.
And I think getting
Um,
any kind of designations too that speak to that, because that number's up from 56 to 63. So, and if and it's tracking right along with the other data point that, we're seeing the biggest transfer of wealth in American history from generation to generation. So those, the millennials and the younger generations need to be educated. If they're spending their money betting online, they need to be educated, right? And who better to educate them about where to park their money than realtors?
Absolutely. And following up on that, more stats, right? The percent of transactions that were cash, 26%. So that's an all-time high as well. And what speaks to that? A number of things, but I think part of that, like transfer of generational wealth, we've been talking about that for years now, where I think we're seeing more and more of it coming through. I think that highlights in that. Another one that goes hand in hand with that is that if I've got this one right, 17% of buyers purchased a multi-generational home. So like, whether that is set up explicitly that way with a casita or something like that, or just, they're expanding so that they have a space in the home for, parents, whatever. Or on the flip side of that, like you said, as far as affordability, Sarah, a big increase in folks that are changing their living situation to include adult children as well. Some of the ADUs, for instance, being built. In a lot of cases, that's not for a grandparent suite. It's actually, to help with that on, the kids side that, are still in the same general area, but are having a challenge with affordability. They're building an ADU for, adult kids too. So the multi-generational thing goes both ways there, which is, again, another thing I think we have to have in our minds here. Any other thoughts on some of those stats or any light bulbs going off with folks? Again, like I said, the masterminding and the thinking through this stuff, I think, is where we get our value. Jump in, someone.
Well, Jessica's had her hand up for a minute too, so I don't know if she still has a question.
You come off mute, Jessica, if you do have something else.
Yes, I don't know if you can, if title's still on, but I had put a question in the chat that didn't get addressed. So, and that can be addressed after the meeting. I just want to make sure somebody answers the question. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm
If you
still
want.
here if it's something that you need.
Sure. I didn't know if you saw the question, but there have been in the private remarks that certain like seller will not pay title for buyer if unless they use company X. And then I also ran into where I couldn't even submit an offer without my client using an online. I can't remember the name of the company, but it was I researched it and they had terrible reviews, an online title company. So I don't know if those violate any rules, but or if those are something like they violate the commissioner's rules or if that's acceptable.
Yeah, we did touch on it briefly. You might have jumped right past it because essentially it was like, yeah, that's definitely not okay. But Brad, Art, Lynette, it would jump in for a little bit more detail there. Like that's not cool.
Yeah, if they're steering you and saying you can't even bring an offer unless you use their title company, I would report that right away because that's definitely a violation.
Great. So would I just do that to the commissioner then?
I would, exactly, to the DRE, and then I would even get a hold of the Arizona Department of Finance that governs title insurers and let them know, because that's definitely enticement in the worst form.
Yeah, and Jessica, I would reach out to their broker and have the conversation first with their broker before you run it up the chain like that, so that they have an opportunity to have a coachable moment inside their brokerage, and then take it from there, or even just call the person. I mean, I had somebody recently send me a message through Showing Time saying, hey, they were offering commission, which we all know. I mean, the MLS up here, like, you schedule showing, it pops up and says don't do that. And so instead of turning them in, I'm like, hey, just so you know, you're not supposed to do that. So let's, try to play nice in the sandbox. And if they are a jerk from there, then yeah, run it up the chain because they deserve that. But I think, let's try to be nice to each other if we can.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily recommend that an agent reach out directly to a broker. It's usually not very successful. And so if you'd like me to do that, give me a pointer for everything and I will give them a call.
Even
Okay.
better, Art.
Thank you.
Yeah, and a great point, Sarah. Like I agree with that, right? Like I always try to lead into positivity and curiosity before judgment, right? And it could be that somehow they think that's the right thing to do, right? And they just haven't asked the question. And I have heard plenty of stories too about someone reaching out and they started a fantastic long-term working relationship with someone else through something contentious like that, right? But instead of hitting them hard, they asked the questions and someone learned something and saved them from some grief, and they can be really appreciative. So yeah, give them a chance, but then also, like I said, if they're if they're resistant or a bit of a jerk or whatever, then send it the right way because it's definitely not okay.
Okay, thank you again.
Oh
Appreciate
yeah,
it.
and you know what? While you're there off muted too, if anyone else hadn't seen, I absolutely want to give an additional shout out to Jessica, being SAR's new agent of the year for 2024. So huge congrats there. I know you can't hear the applause from everyone, but it's there. You can see the claps and the fingers. And you know what? I think that's how you get there, right? Is by asking questions and leaning into that data and leaning into the group. So huge congrats to you on that. And if you do have any words of wisdom about how you have been able to get there, feel free to share now. But we certainly appreciate you.
I appreciate everyone. I've had a lot of mentorship from Remax professionals, which has been a game changer for me. And then I just got really involved with SAR. I mean, unfortunately, I'm not with WeServe, but so yeah, I just got really involved, and I had no idea. It was a surprise that they gave me that Emerging Realtor Award. And so yeah, so thank you to everyone and you know who you are, who's assisted me and answered questions. And so I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Again, you're part of the group as well, right? So that is one of those two-way streets we were talking about. Is we all learn from each other. So always wonderful to have more of you guys involved on this stuff for sure. So again, we're kind of just chatting here, masterminding and whatnot. I think a couple things that stood out to me as overall themes, maybe, with all this data and all these data points and whatnot, is as we mentioned before, with uncertainty in the market, with these changing in demographics, and who's able to do what, who can afford what, that sort of thing, it still comes down to the connection, having an opportunity to have those discussions, right? And again, what these surveys and whatnot tell us, when consumers are looking for a realtor to help them out, which again, the vast majority of people still do, right? For year after year, decade after decade, there's been all these discussions about how, the job of an agent, the job of a realtor is going away, right? Like how many times have we seen that? Oh, there's this new technology. Oh, you can view listings online now. Like agents are going away. Well, if you look at the actual stats, the share of people using an agent has only gone up, right? It keeps creeping up. Even if it's like a tenth of a percent, it hasn't fallen off a cliff. It's gone up in all that time. So when consumers are looking, the reputation, that's 35%, that's the number one thing they look for. Trustworthiness and honesty, 21%. I mean, these are things that should be implicit qualities that we all have. But people have had a lot of bad experiences out there. And, sometimes people are thinking, oh, gee, well, how do I like show that online? Whatever. Well, sure, you can work on your online, presence. There's more actually coming from Remax about that as well. But again, this is why it's just important to be, in connection with people in your sphere, why those referrals count. Because yeah, someone might Google you, look at a couple reviews, that's huge. But when someone they know and trust already, puts your name out there, that's top of the list. And then again, lean into the fact that, again, through the BrandSpark survey, Remax was again voted the most trusted real estate agents in the US and Canada. No reason not to humble brag with that, right? That's what people want, and we've got it. So make sure you make those connections out there. So a few other things I'll throw out there real quick, see if it sparks anything. Someone was chatting a little bit earlier about the soundtrack, right? I think Roberta, you mentioned that, So 3 qualities of great leaders are, retire those broken soundtracks, replace them with new soundtracks, and then repeat until that is an automatic thing. And again, what we're talking about is what replays in your mind, and it doesn't have to be negativity. It doesn't just have to be like, oh, woe is me. But like, yeah, what's something that's just holding you back, right? What's something that is an assumption that you've been making all this time? Like, oh, gee, I'm having a really hard time getting listings. I guess I can't, or, I know there's still a few people that aren't real comfortable with the buyer broker conversation still. Like if you're just not okay with that, listen to what you're telling yourself about anything that's been a challenge, or even if it's not really a challenge per se, but something you'd like to improve. Listen to what your internal soundtrack is on that. What is the part, what's the speed bump, right? Even if it's not a full-on roadblock in front of you, what's that speed bump slowing you down? And even if you're not sure how to rewrite that soundtrack, put your hand up, chat with one of us, let's talk about it. It really does have a compound effect. Anyone want to share a change that they've made, or maybe a speed bump that they've been running into recently with some of these changes or this uncertainty, or even if it's just like your general stress level, whatever it may be, like throw something out there. I could wait.
No, I've said this before, Mike. I just don't listen to the chatter. Sometimes you go to some luncheon and you're sitting there with other realtors and, oh, the market's down, and oh, I can't sell anything, and oh, I can't get a listing. And I just don't like to listen to that chatter. And even when we heard the actual statistics at R4 that maybe not as many sales happened last year, I looked over at Rick and I was like, oh, we did really good this year. And I just prefer to do what that slide said. Don't, try to figure out how to make it work instead of just complaining that you don't like it or something's not working. Try to lean into, how do I make this work? And that's what I loved about every one of these speakers, was that they were able to look at things and attack it from a different direction. The fighter pilot that Brandy commented on, she was phenomenal. She was the first woman fighter pilot. Believe it or not, women were not allowed to fly F-14 Tomcats back in the day. And that irritated her, and almost to the point of insubordination. She went in and told her commanding officer, yeah, that doesn't work for me. That is what I want to do. And a couple of months later, she shared, that changed. And she got to be one of the fighter pilots. And that's just amazing. And so just change your mindset. How do you attack it? That's what I try to do.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, right? And I know sometimes people roll their eyes and it sounds too easy or whatever, but the point is that it's not magical, right? It's not just like reframing the question like solves all the challenges, but it does put you in that different mindset where you can actually approach them in a more productive way, right? Like that's, at least when I'm saying this stuff, that's what I'm talking about, like with like the interest rate thing. Okay, I've heard a lot less chatter about that now, right? It's not like the number one thing on most people's minds right now, even though it remains a challenge, right? Like those rates are not back down to 3%. We all know this. But when asking that question, instead of saying, I'm not going to be able to help buyers anymore because the rates are too high, again, like the question is not that. We can't change that. The question is, how do I help my buyers with these rates if that's a challenge for them? Right? And that gets you looking at different things. But what's really, really important too when you're connected with your sphere is letting them hear those questions reframed, right? Because how many of the people you're working with have some of those beliefs themselves because they have different things that are their number one concern. And in their own mind, they feel trapped, right? It's not a concern for them. That's my roadblock. That's why I cannot, move right now. And if that's their belief, how likely do you think it is that they're going to pick up the phone and say, "Hey, Roberta, I 100% believe I will not be able to move in the next 2 decades." Any thoughts on that? They're not going to do that because their belief is they can't. That's why you have to have those genuine connections and let them ask the question. Let them be in curiosity, let the conversation naturally go there and give them that hope. I could talk about that for a long time, but I think it's just such an important point is reframe whatever it is. And frankly, if you have something that's successful as well, doesn't hurt to ask the question, right? How can I do even more with this? Wow, this is working great for actually connecting with people. What can I do to connect with more with this? Like that is another way to expand your business too. So yeah, extremely important point. I appreciate that, Roberta. I got a bunch of other random bullet points I could go into, but I don't want to keep you all take time if it's not valuable for you. So yeah, anyone again have a roadblock or a light bulb or something like that you want to jump in with here when we've got the brain trust available? You're welcome, Lisa. I appreciate you too. So here's what I say. Still come off mute, jump in if you want. Absolutely fine. There again was so much stuff at R4 that is still coming out, that is coming down the pike. We got a few different figs that are actually releasing next month, in April. It's still crazy for me to say that next month is April. I'm trying to get my head around that. But please take a look at Friday A-bills in particular. Take a look at some of the lunch alerts, things like that. We're going to be talking about more of these. And we're going to include some things that are not going to be taking a lot of heavy lifting from you. But if you want to take a little bit of time to do some prep, like for instance, the referral thing that was mentioned a little bit earlier. Very briefly on that as an example. They're applying more of the AI tools into finding, other agents to give or receive referrals from. And one thing that's been a huge, I think, value with the Remax network is being able to go into the roster and really look for great agents, find people that you think are a good match with your specific clients in a different area if you don't already have a contact, that kind of thing. And I know how many of us have received stuff, the other direction based on that. One of my favorite things is still someone had just listed in their profile that they were avid badminton players. Okay, they just like had thrown that in as part of like their bio or something with what they enjoy, right? And they got a referral. It was like, oh man, this is amazing. My clients are like, they just love badminton. So I thought that was great. And like no other qualifications they even touched on as to why they were making the referral. But sometimes those kind of things are the connection point. So the idea is they're taking that more holistic view with you as an agent, the things you put in, and they're adding a little bit of AI to that so it can try to like, highlight some of those other incidental connections a little bit more. So that'll be great. But to do that, of course, you're probably going to want to flesh out your profile a little more, things like that. So just one example there, some of the stuff we're going to be setting out to help you get prepped and easily take advantage of those things. So please keep your eye out for those things as well. It's going to be great. Roberta.
Just a finer point on that, and Rick could probably say something to it. Even if you think you did your profile and you think you're not a balloon head and that your photo's up there and all the information's up there, go in and double check, because all of ours, when agents come on, we set it up, everything's in order. And Rick went in the other day, I think it was when he was signing up for concierge maybe or something, and he said, my photo's not in there anymore. And so there are glitches sometimes that happen. And so go into your profile and make sure you are still who you are and complete.
Yeah, important point there. And again, only so many hours a day and so many people, but we have also like Junior's been helping out with this as well. Been doing, a little bit of those audits, trying to help you all out. So, if we notice something glaring like that, we're trying to reach out to you as well. So, if that's the case, that's why, right? It's just because we've seen something and maybe it's not you. It might be a transition between systems or like, we ran into a couple where like the headshots, like I'm sure they weren't put in that way, but somewhere with converting them or something, just the quality got like pretty bad, right? And they just needed to re-upload the same shot, but a clean file, stuff like that. So we're trying to help you out there. And also, if you run into something that just seems odd, you're not sure, reach out, right? John Patrick can help you out with that, whatever. We're here to help you out with this stuff. Like those items shouldn't be, that speed bump, the roadblock. We want to make sure we're all ready to take advantage of the better stuff. So again, keep an eye out for all that. Don't be shy about anything you need there. But we're just about 10:30 here, so thank you so much for the discussion. I appreciate that. Thank you again for the flexibility jumping into the virtual format here. And yeah, anything else that's on your mind, reach out. Let's make the most of it. We'll send out the slides with some of those stats that we've discussed here, so you guys have those at your fingertips. And yeah, make it a great month. Thank you all. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Mike.
Take care, everyone.